Video game budgets. You may have heard of them, or you may still be sane. But one thing that's certain is that they seem to be a closely guarded secret. Most of the time. Is this the most expensive game ever made? Is it over 3 times more expensive than GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, which were previously touted as some of the most expensive games ever made? And lastly, what f***ing game had a budget of $900 million? But we'll get to all of that soon in the video. Now, take movie budgets for example. Basically, almost every popular movie you can think of has the budget publicly listed online, especially the big budget ones. If it's a movie that costs at least about, say, $30 million to make, I guarantee you the budget will be available on Wikipedia. Not the same for games though. I don't know why these companies are so intentionally secretive about the sheer amount of resources that go into creating these games, and maybe you can't really blame them. I mean, you're telling me it cost over $100,000 to create Balan's Wonderworld, and I you right in the temple. But honestly, up until a few years ago, I never even really had an idea of how much games cost to make, just because it wasn't something I saw people talk about online a lot. And I think the first time I saw an article about how big budget PlayStation games cost over $100 million to make, it kind of surprised me. I didn't know games were as expensive as movies, you know? I guess I thought, it's just a video game. How expensive could this be? Pretty expensive, apparently. Spoiler, that's like 15 times cheaper than the most expensive game in this video. But you see, if you like the video, let's get me to 1,000 subs. But it all does make sense when you start to think about how grand games have become, especially nowadays that a lot of games are essentially extremely long-ass movies with playable sections. I mean, look at these story-driven games that are fully voiced with properly storyboarded and animated cutscenes, and that's just even like the watchable parts, not the playable parts. I mean, there's so much more that goes into that. The level design, the character design, the story writing, the coding, the testing, debugging, music composing, UI designing. That's enough. You get the point. What I'm saying is, there's a lot that goes into game development, and I didn't even really scratch the surface. At first glance, I was kind of surprised when I saw that games were hitting the 100, 200 million mark. But when I thought about it, well, it made sense. Now, what's still surprising to me is that games are becoming significantly more expensive than movies. This Call of Duty game costs over $700 million to make. That's mind-blowing to me. What's in the game? What makes it any different from any other game? It doesn't have mind-blowing visuals. It doesn't have any revolutionary, innovative new features. It's freaking good old Call of Duty, and there's nothing wrong with that. But why is it $700 million? Quick, what's the most expensive movie of all time? Star Wars The Force Awakens from 2015, which cost a whopping $447 million Great American dollars to make. It's an insane amount of money. I mean, the film made about $2 billion, so I see why they put all that money into it. But Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War cost over $250 million more to make. It was literally 3.5 times more expensive to make this game than it was to make the generation-defining blockbuster Titanic. And even Rockstar Games' all-timers, Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, don't even come close to this figure. And I'll get to them in this video too, don't worry. I mean, I expect Call of Duty games to be expensive, but $700? That's bananas. Black Ops Cold War was the best-selling game of 2020 in the USA. It had pretty favorable reviews, especially when it came to the single-player and zombies modes. But multiplayer, not so much. I think the general consensus is that even though it's not a legendary Call of Duty game, it was pretty good. I said the general consensus. I wouldn't know myself. I was too busy playing Sackboy in 2020. I remember being super excited for the DualSense utilization in this game. It was a launch title for the Xbox Series X and PS5 back then, and I remember going on Reddit almost every day to read about what PS5 games utilize the DualSense haptics and adaptive triggers in the best and most intense ways. Apart from Astro's Playroom, there wasn't a lot of games that did that. There still isn't a lot, but that's beside the point. I saw a lot of people constantly mention how Black Ops Cold War utilized the adaptive triggers specifically for recoil imitation when shooting different guns, and that just sounded so cool to me. I mean, different guns had different weights and different level of vibrations, so the triggers will feel different based on the weapon you were shooting. And for the first time in a quarter of a decade times 2, I considered buying a Call of Duty game. They said I was cloned. The game did end up selling 30 million copies, which is impressive even for a Call of Duty game, And I say even for a Call of Duty game because those things sell like hotcakes on a cold summer day. But I just can't help but think, why was it so expensive to make? God damn! Now you might be wondering, how do I know all this mumbo jumbo about how much it costs to make the Call of Duty games or how successful it was? Or you might not. To be honest, you're probably not wondering. I don't think the number one thing going through a viewer's head when watching a video is, how did they find this out? But I'll answer the question anyway. I know all this mumbo jumbo because Activision, the publishers of Call of Duty, recently had some court documents leak online, and it contained budget information for 2020's Black Ops Cold War, as well as 2019's Modern Warfare and 2015's Black Ops 3. They each cost $640 and $450 million respectively to make. It's like the prices go up every damn year! Now just some more context on how expensive these games are. The Last of Us Part 2 and Horizon Forbidden West, which are both some of Sony's most expensive games ever, cost around $200 million to make each. Heck, even the fabled Rockstar game GTA 5 cost just over $200 million to make. It cost them $170 million to make Red Dead Redemption 2 with all of its bells and whistles, with the extreme attention to detail in that game. Rockstar's next game, GTA 6, which is arguably the most anticipated game ever since LEGO Bionicle Matter and Adventures, has been heavily rumored to go past the $1 billion budget mark though. And what else can I say to that rumor except, grain of salt! Take it! You can never catch a Nintendo game on any list of most expensive games, and honestly, I respect Nintendo for that. Even though I hate that they sometimes cut too many corners, it is interesting to see that with games, going bigger isn't always necessarily better, and it's how best you make use of your resources that matter. Again, Shenmue cost $70 million. Now I did think this $700 million budget for Black Ops Cold War would be the highest ever, because I'd never heard anything close to that amount before, but apparently not. See, Genshin Impact is a game that should have its parent company arrested because they have reportedly raked in $6.3 billion in mobile app revenue. That's not including console and PC versions. And the game is just 4 years old. You know, I'm starting to see why live service games are so popular. So, the way budgets for live service game work is a bit weird. Since the game runs on an online server that needs to be constantly maintained and regulated, the budget goes up every year since they're constantly spending more money on keeping the game alive through server maintenance, game patches, updates, and new features. As of today, they've spent around $900 million on the game so far. And that number will only keep on ballooning as long as the game keeps on raking in more and more money. And look, I'm not one to kink shame when it comes to our individual gaming preferences, but at some point I gotta ask, why are you guys giving them all of your money? I'm giving someone else all of my money, but I'm not gonna say who. It's not Lenny Kravitz. I can tell you that much.
What the?
Nintendoggity Snoop Dogs charge a goddamn $100 for an alarm clock! Nintendo, for that price, I can buy a smartphone that comes with an alarm clock. Whippity whoppity bop, around the arms of a clock. Nintendo massively suck, yet they succeed, it's not luck. Woo!